Hello, guys. Welcome back into another episode of the Out of Our Minds podcast. Happy hump day. Or if you're not listening to this on a Wednesday, happy whatever the freaking day it is. I don't even know. Tuesday, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Saturday, Sunday.
Welcome back in. Saturday, Sunday. I was just assuming people don't listen to podcasts on the weekends. I don't really listen to podcasts on the weekends. But welcome in. Today we're going to have a beautiful conversation around de-pedestalizing people and the power that exists when we start to see people as equals and we remove them from this imaginary pedestal that we tend to put people on when we believe they have something that we don't. And there's a lot of like subtle subconscious perceptions that play in here, and there's a lot of liberation once we begin to de-pedestalize people. And there's also a lot of confidence that we access by internally doing this process of taking people off pedestals. And I'm sure we'll go into the process of also taking ourselves off pedestals. And there's a lot that we're going to dive into in this conversation. It's going to give you a lot of freedom when it comes to feeling confident around others. You're going to get an idea of how special and unique we all are with the unique genius and gifts that we each have, and how we're all here to kind of contribute to this collective in a very unique and special way. And yeah, so let's just open up the conversation here. I'm sure we'll talk about a bunch of different things, but that's kind of the gist of it. And I'll start by asking you a question. Why do you feel like we live in a society where it's so common to put people on pedestals? Like, what have we done to bring us to this place of like constantly putting people on pedestals?
Oh, what a good juicy cue.
Curveball. You ready for it?
I wasn't prepared for this. This is totally unscripted.
We didn't talk about this one.
Wow. Yeah. It's such a common dynamic. It's crazy because, I mean, I definitely feel that it's very common in the West, and I think it's really tied in part to celebrity culture and idolization and this pattern that actually I think this pattern's been around for a long time, but of building people up and putting them up on the pedestal and giving them godlike qualities and then waiting for them to fuck up so we can tear them down. It doesn't always result in that end part, but I do think that is tied into the pattern of building people up and making them, you know, superhuman and impossible to reach, and outsourcing our ways of thinking to them, our authority to them. You know, what do they think about the subject before you even think about what you think? And it's a disempowering thing that I think, let's say if you were to think about why would you teach someone to do this, to think about themselves that way? And I mean, it's just how you would disempower people and always have them continuously looking for someone new outside of themselves to tell them what to do. And then I think even more specifically, it keeps you from accessing the highest levels of abundance and joy and success and whatever it is and fulfillment when you put yourself below what you see as possible in other people, and you just reaffirm that belief or that view on life that says they can have it but I can't, and like, oh, they have something special and I don't. And I think it probably comes as well from a fear-based feeling of trying to keep yourself safe, where, let's say, if like your parents or whatever generation that like raised you, for example, just wanted to not be disappointed, or they just didn't have the tools maybe to remember their power to, you know, achieve the things that they wanted to achieve, but then you would save yourself from the hurt and pain by just convincing yourself to not even try and to just live vicariously through other people and their success and genius, because we know that when you see that in somebody else, it's because it's a mirror reflection of what's within you. But when you don't have that awareness, you just think of it as like you're not special, and there's kind of like an us versus them. So it's partially then rooted in separation as well, I think.
Yeah, the celebrity culture thing is exactly what I was thinking about too. Because if you think about it, like when we lived in tribes, we did have leaders. We had the men that would like lead the tribe, or the wise older people that would give wisdom to the younger people.
Right.
And that's like a beautiful part of admiring people and listening to them and being open to receive. But then this whole westernization of like leadership has created this new meaning behind leadership, and it's more of a pedestalizing type of vibe.
Yeah.
And it is interesting to think about in more of like a conspiracy type of way of like, ooh, like, yeah, pedestalizing people actually fits perfectly into the agenda of giving normal society these figures to put on pedestals and make them feel like these people are untouchable. And then everything we feed to them to say, the people, quote unquote, below them will just blindly agree and follow them.
Right.
So all we have to do is give these people money and status and put them up on pedestals, and then we'll feed them the information that they need to inject out into the collective.
Right.
And then the collective will just absorb it as true.
Totally. It's
This
the
is
perfect con.
kind of taking a turn of what we originally thought we were going to talk about, but it's definitely important to talk about.
I mean, I think it helps you understand, at least, you know, I think it helps you understand why it is a dynamic that is taking away from our agency and our freedom and our self-love and our own actualization, self-actualization, to think about that it as a perfect con, where this is, you know, we kind of like animate it out. You're like, if someone wanted you to not feel powerful and whatever. It just kind of illustrates like what is happening on a, you know, energetic and mechanical level. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just one of those symptoms of a very fear-based society, and that when people lose empowerment of their belief, when people lose the belief in themselves, that's where all these other symptoms show up of outsourcing the authority and pedestalizing and putting yourself down. And it's just a lot of like self-deprecation that gets kind of spiraled out of control.
Yeah, I agree. That's more of like the pedestalization in more of like a collective macro celebrity pop culture type of way. But then there's like the subtleties of pedestalizing people in our immediate sphere.
Yes.
That is definitely an important conversation to have. And even with social media and seeing people share their highlight reels online, we begin to see people through the lens that matches up to our own subconscious perceptions and beliefs, which usually our subconscious is telling us that we could never amount to X, Y, and Z, or we're not enough to do that. So to validate those beliefs, we need people that do amount to X, Y, and Z and are worthy, so that we can have that distance between where we think we are versus where we think we need to get to. And when we pedestalize people, it's kind of like a validation of those subtle subconscious perceptions that we hold about ourselves of, oh, I can never have that, or
Right.
oh, that person just is able to get this type of lifestyle and have this type of lifestyle because of this. And we're kind of like taking away our own abilities to create the reality that we desire to have, and also to manifest things, but also to feel worthy and whole enough to attract those things into our reality. So whenever we're pedestalizing people that have something that we want, we're actually energetically pushing the thing that they have that we also desire further from us, because we're saying that that exists in a frequency that we don't exist in. And this is why I love this conversation, because it really does connect to manifestation and living an authentic, aligned life with your soul self, because your soul is just your most authentic, powerful self, where you get to tap into this energy where you magnetize everything that's meant for you. And this pedestalization conversation is so important, because as you take people off the pedestal, you get to recognize and acknowledge your own power, which is a part of your journey of tapping into your authentic energy.
Right.
And with this, life begins to shift around you because you're tapping into a new energy and you're magnetizing things to you. So this isn't just like oh, let's take people off the pedestal. No, like taking people off the pedestal is an energetic internal process that you get to do that unlocks a different state of being for yourself.
Yeah. And it's what's coming through as you say all that is it goes really deep because when you start to examine and think about this dynamic of pedestalizing people or putting people below you, so pedestalizing yourself, it starts to gnaw at this idea of oneness and seeing the humanity in other people. And it goes both ways, where when you pedestalize someone, you kind of almost like dehumanize yourself in a way, while actually in a way making the other person not human. And you're just sort of like picking out the realness of them to paint them as this caricature of who they are. And that's where like the whole tearing down and waiting for them to fuck up comes in. And that's like the whole cancel culture thing, is making people out to these idols and then just waiting for them to mess something up. And then because we reject our own shadow and our imperfection, that's why we're ready to cancel them. Whereas if we had accepted our own imperfection, we wouldn't cancel. Same thing with the looking down upon people, is you're just riding the ship in both directions, where if you are judging or even thinking that someone has to, that someone has wronged you, like, and holding a grudge and not being willing to like forgive them or whatever, you are also denying the shadow within you. And you're feeling like they have these shadows and they're so evil and I would never do that. But the truth is we all have a shadow. We all have a dark side. And we all have a light side. So it's in both ways that it helps to get at a very core teaching that helps us to see the worthiness and the love and the beauty in all beings, no matter who they are, what they do, what they have achieved, the things that they've done, all of it. So it's really challenging, but it's so profound because it really shakes up the entire way that you look at the world around you and the way that you interact with all beings. And I feel like that is such an ultimate, goal as like a spiritually embodied person, is to work on that and notice any time that you are putting yourself above or below others.
Mm-hmm. It is so true what you're saying with the pedestalization. Every single time you put someone on a pedestal, you are guaranteed to be disappointed when you find out that they're just a human. Because like what you're saying, you're cherry picking all the positive traits they have and totally ignoring any shadows. Or maybe you don't see them because they're on TV and they're in the public eye and you just see this highlight reel of them, or maybe social media. But every single person has shadows. And I love that you're bringing this part up because it does connect to cancel culture. I watched this show called Summer House and it's on Bravo. And there was a new character. There was a new guy on this season and his name is West. And he came into the season and everyone freaking loved him. He was like the funny, like swaggy guy that had like good style. And he just brought like an energy to the house that it was so desperately needing. Like so funny, would crack jokes and brought like a lightness to the house. He ended up falling in love with this beautiful girl named Ciara, who's a cast on the show. And you see their relationship kind of go throughout the season. And then he drops the ball at the end of the season and ends up having a fear of like committing to her and completely disappoints the audience. And everyone literally was building him up the entire season, hyping him up. Oh my God, this guy's the dopest. Can't believe he's on the show. He better come back next season. Gained so many followers on Instagram. His career took off. He got hired by like Complex, like big things. And next thing you know, the reunion aired last week. Everyone hates him online. Oh. They're canceling him. How dare he not want to be with this beautiful woman? Like the whole world is raging. And I was just like talking to my friends. We have a group chat about the show. And I was just saying, it's so creepy how much entertainment we get from bringing people up to tear them down. And how satisfied people feel with doing that. I was going to his Instagram and reading some of the comments and like the paragraphs that people were writing. Yeah. I was like, this is creepy.
It's really icky.
Like, this is so weird. Yeah, icky.
Yeah.
And it's because they put him on this big pedestal, and then they found out that he was just a human that's dealing with his own shadows, and they wanted to fucking tear him off the pedestal. And it was such a beautiful and entertaining process for people to do that.
Dude, yeah.
Not beautiful for
It's really like,
actually, but
it really outlines why if in the first place people just understood that he was a human and just like you, there would be no like surprise and joy in watching them fuck up. It kind of brings to mind the whole Jay Shetty thing, where when I first heard people were like starting to question his past, it didn't make me blink. I was just like, okay, interesting. Maybe his story is not as straight as we thought it was. And then I kind of moved on with my life. And I was like, but the weird thing was reading some of the articles where people are like ready to fucking throw stones at him. And I was like, why did you put him up on the pedestal in the first place? As if he has to be this like flawless fucking person. We are able to even properly criticize and hold people accountable when they're on the same playing field as in the first place. So it's not like you can't like recognize when there is, you know, a wrongdoing or someone lying or whatever it is. But it's like by starting on the same playing field, we take out a lot of like the weird energetics that occur when we have pedestalized them and then we're waiting to tear them down. And it's like less surprising and you won't be disappointed because you already saw that they're fucking human and that they have shadows and light just like the rest of us. So it's not like we're waiting at the edge of our seat to see if they fuck something up. And that's like the shift is then it changes how we all interact with each other, and the way that you view celebrities or your favorite podcaster or whoever it is you're properly seeing them through the lens of they're a human and they are a genius in some ways like me, and they also have shadows in some ways like me, and both are fucking fine.
Yes. Let's talk more about the genius aspect of this too, because you can be sitting face to face with someone who is so tapped into their genius. And if we have the awareness that we all have our own genius, this can actually activate something within us in a good way. Or it can make us feel like we're not good enough if we're not aware that every single person has their own genius and own way of expressing themselves in a unique and authentic way. This is connecting also to the Taylor Swift episode that we did. So if you guys want this conversation more in depth through the lens of being a Swiftie, definitely check out that episode. Bella and I went and saw the movie, the Taylor Swift, it's not a documentary, but the concert in theaters. And we both walked away from that movie. I'm not like a big Swiftie fan, but I could respect her fucking hustle and her grind and the way that she expresses herself so beautifully through her genius. And we walked away from watching that movie so activated. I mean, you can hear it in the episode if you go back and listen. But then there's like the flip side of seeing someone in their genius, and all of a sudden you're kind of like making yourself smaller because you're thinking that they have something that you don't have.
Yeah.
But maybe what you have is actually uniquely yours, and it's wanting to be recognized and really claimed and seen as something so powerful, just like what you're seeing in this other person. So I know that you have been around a lot of high profile people just from the stories that you tell me. And I'm curious if you have gone through like your own internal process of taking people off the pedestal, because these are people that I would say 99.9% of the population would put on a pedestal if they were in their presence.
Totally.
And I'm curious what your process with that has been and like what that experience has been like for you.
Yeah, it's been something that I've put a lot of thought and energy into because, you know, when you hang out with, I mean, just people who are either very successful or they're like very in their genius, they're very confident, they have like climbed the ladder at the company they work at, or even like, you know, you just like randomly will bump into or end up in a circle with like really high profile people and you're like, holy shit, it's that person, like that type of feeling. And it totally triggers, first of all, anything within you that is going to be based within lack or insecurity or the way that you view yourself, especially if you are kind of like in awe of this person, or you're like, wow, they're so smart and cool and they make so much money and they must be so good at this and that, whatever. So it really triggers that. And I've had kind of a whole journey with like being able to take people off the pedestal and to be able to interact in a way that is so much calmer and so much more like mutually beneficial and enjoyable, because I've remembered that we're all just human and we're all just on this journey, and people are just in different timelines and paths and wearing different costumes for this incarnation. And for one, it's been a really beautiful path of finding my own confidence, and first of all, it being like having times where I make myself small and I, question myself, and I don't, maybe input, like I'm in a room with like really smart engineers. And so I like don't like say, things or talk about my work because I'm like, oh, my silly work. Like if that was my viewpoint, right? And I started to like pick up on that. And just by the nature of when you kind of live life in a conscious, aware way, you are like, okay, I can feel like this doesn't feel good to make myself feel small or to not talk about my interests if someone asks, or to always like deflect or whatever it is. And so it just was a catalyst to really like, when there's that discomfort moment, to use it as a practice, kind of like a playground of being able to practice talking about my work. And when someone asks me what I do, to practice that like quote unquote elevator pitch of just like what I do and like feeling proud about it. Notice where my mind and body are at so that I can use that as a goalpost. And then the next time be like, this is what I'm trying to say. It's the mirror for whatever you have within you in terms of how confident and secure and grounded you are in your own lane and in your own genius. So at first it looked like giving myself permission to, take part in conversations and bring things up and like give my POV, even if I'm not an expert in whatever the topic is. Like it's just trusting yourself enough to give input, right? It like goes back to college classes where you would like raise your hand and ask a question and like be part of the conversation, where the only way to really work on that is to both have the awareness that you're feeling like insecure about it, and then to also push yourself out of the comfort zone to contribute and try to be a part of those conversations. And the second thing has been, because of all of the kind of like spiritual teachings around oneness and having just a really deep understanding of who we all really are on a basic level, it has then given me a lens on when I meet a person or am like in the room with a high profile person, or just meeting like whoever it is, right? Both high profile and a random person on the street, right? Everybody is still a human being and is still one, and is still a mix of light and dark, and is a part of this universal consciousness. And because I know those teachings and I had them really affect me so much, it literally gave me a different lens to look at people. So part of it is the reason why I think some people feel called to this work is because it changes the way you relate to other people. And if you can embody those teachings of all is one and, understanding your own dark and light and your own shadow, you start to see it better in other people. And so it's just a new sort of program on the way you interact. So from there, I recently had a really interesting experience where I basically felt like the pull to ask this person who is really, really fucking successful in their lane and is like business success, like technology, all the things. And I got this like intuitive hit to ask this person if they, basically in so many words, if they like believe that the universe or like a higher power is supporting their efforts. Like it was essentially like do you think about the spiritual side of what you're trying to do? And their answer really surprised me, because I realized that they're so based in the material world that they hadn't really put like thought and energy into that way of seeing things, like the way me and you operate basically completely, which is about like manifestation, laws of attraction, the universe, working with the higher power, connecting to your highest self, like the universe being this benevolent force that wants to help you. And that was kind of like a foreign concept to this person. And it was cool because I had this whole shifting in my mind where not only, was I already practicing seeing them as like just a human being on their own path and they just happen to figure out their genius and how to be monetarily compensated for it. And then I was like, wow, I have my own genius of I could talk for days and teach this person about the laws of attraction in the universe and these spiritual truths and esoteric things and human design and whatever. And they would have something to gain from me. And the bigger realization was if I had held back and convinced myself that I don't know enough and that they're not interested and that, wow, they're this fucking caliber, so like I should just not even try, I would miss out and they would miss out on my genius and my gifts and the things that I can bring to the table. And that can play out in so many ways in life, whether it's with your partner. A lot of us idolize and pedestalize our partner and their potential and their perfection, how much we love them. And then we put ourselves down and don't like think that our gifts and our genius is enough. And I've shared about that with Milan because he is so smart and cool and awesome. And for a while, I put his work above mine. And all just to say, it's in those conscious different choices that you make where you're trying to always go for oneness and respect and seeing the humanity in other people in both ways, the ones quote unquote above you and the ones quote unquote below you, and bring everybody up. That changes how you interact and lets everybody be in their genius and to get the benefits from other people's genius.
Wow. I mean, everything you just shared is so powerful, but I want to ask another question. Like, what would you, from this whole experience, it sounds like you have a lot of wisdom and just learnings from going through this whole experience. What would you share as like something practical that someone can start to do if they find that being around a certain person or a certain group of people starts to make them feel smaller, and they see, even just by listening to this now, they're seeing that, ooh, maybe I'm like putting people on a pedestal and kind of putting myself lower. How can we start to actually take some like practical advice and do something about that? What would you share with someone?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that helps you recognize your own genius, let's say you're doing it from the angle of doing the work of, let's say this person is up here and you're down here. Let's at least like start to lift yourself up, and maybe you can be lifted up like even a little higher than them for just a second. I think the way to do that is, two things are coming to mind. I think the self-discovery route of getting really curious and playful with your own abilities and gifts. I mean, the obvious like route to having, you know, a literal like reading on who you are would be something like human design or astrology or whatever, where you could literally be like, wow, like this is my personality and this is my strength and this is how I learn and this is my gift. And those things are beautiful because then they help you to they are a mirror of what you can then cultivate and nourish and nurture on your own. So I think being
Nothing more practical than that.
yeah, like just to literally think about like nourish your own gifts and whatever you enjoy. Let's say you don't view it as a gift. You're like, I don't have any gifts. I'm not good at anything right now. You are good at things and you do have gifts, but it's okay if you don't know them right now. Just nurture the things that you enjoy and are a little bit good at and that you like get lost in. Because really, I think part of the confidence thing is when you have your own like mojo going on and you spend time reading or painting or hammering away literally at like a project, and those things build confidence because they start to awaken like your creativity and your ideas and your inspiration, and the action will bring up the doubt. And so that's like the whole process of just nurture your craft and do things that you think are your form of genius, because the more that you nurture them, then you can talk about them more easily. And someone's like, hey, how was your week? Oh, fucking great. I finally started a project that I liked. Like stuff like that, where you're just nourishing that part of you. And then I think almost using these mindset shifts is when you're with someone, and to think about like, okay, if they ask me like what I do for work or how things are going, or, you know, what did I do this past weekend, is just remind yourself that like, assume the best that they actually want to hear. Like if they're asking, they actually want to know. Like, it doesn't matter what the truth is of what's going on in them. Like, assume the best, that they want to learn from you, that they want to hear how things are going, and that they have something to learn from you. So if you're like talking to someone and you're like, oh, I have something to teach them, and not from a fucking cocky way of just like, of course you have something to teach them, right? This is just the truth. Then I think that changes the flavor of how you interact with people, and you will give yourself permission to share your knowing and your knowledge and your gifts and your experiences with them. So yeah, it's like nurturing your own interests. Use a tool like human design or astrology that will literally be like, this is your gift and this is what you're good at. And then you can be like, fuck yeah, I am good at that. And then have that mindset of like, I have something to offer this world. I have something to offer this person. I'm just going to trust what comes through and let myself explore that I could really have something to add here.
I'm really awakening to this idea that we all have these gifts within us in like an even deeper level just listening to you. And I know this is something you're so passionate about with just the nature of human design and how it's broken down to show you the gifts. I think it's given you such a beautiful perspective on everything we're talking about. And I'm even learning so much just by listening to you talk about this, but I'm really feeling like in my body, like I obviously know we all have gifts and we all have a special thing that we are meant to give back to the collective, whether it just be the way that you interact with family or loved ones or the way that you interact at your job, whatever it is. Doesn't have to be like career oriented. But this is just like being felt in such a deeper way as I'm listening to you. Like, guys, if you're listening to this, like, you have gifts. You have very special things about you that no one has in the way that is perfectly created within your own being. Like, you have this unique recipe of your energy, the way that you are able to communicate, or the way you're able to connect with people, or the way that you're able to learn. And this is just like, I'm scratching the surface of these gifts that we all have, but we all are so unique. And I'm really feeling in my body like this liberation of thinking that we all need to, I don't know. It's like, I'm really feeling, I've just had like a really big shift as you were talking. I'm trying to find the words of the almost awakening that I just had, but to give yourself permission to fully fucking claim your gifts. And the way that that becomes more comfortable for you to do that is by noticing and feeling the way that the ego makes that something special about you in like an egotistical way. Like, I think a lot of people are resistant to claiming their gifts and the unique power that they hold because they think it's like them flaunting something about them that makes them better than other people. But when you see that every single person has unique gifts and your ability to fully claim the gifts that you hold is actually such a beautiful salute to like your soul. And it's really giving just like so much appreciation to who you are as a soul and the uniqueness that you carry in not an egotistical way. And you can really feel that when someone is fully in their power, claiming their gifts, and it's so connected to their soul and there's no ego involved. And I'm like thinking about Sarah has been such a person for me to admire and to see with like claiming her gifts. And I had to go through this whole journey of de-pedestalizing her because as a mentor and a coach, it's like I came to her out of this place of, I want to learn from you. And there almost is like this important part of the journey where like you're kind of meant to pedestalize people just because that gives you that energetic openness to receive, but you don't have to. Like, if you're aware and conscious, you can have someone that you admire and you're like, okay, I see you, I understand you're in your gifts, I want to absorb the wisdom that you have learned through your own experience. But yeah, she's definitely someone that I see who's like fully claiming their gifts, but in a way that's like there's no ego involved. And I think when we hear this conversation and listen to, oh, like everyone has their own unique gifts, and it's so freaking beautiful that we all carry unique ways of contributing to this world, it gives you permission to be like, fuck yeah, I'm really fucking good at this. And I'm going to go out there and like flaunt myself and really show the world how I can help them because I'm really fucking good at this thing or these things. And maybe you're not good at that because you're good at these things that I'm not good at.
Yes, totally. Yeah, and like
it's a total
who's
liberation.
Yes, totally. And like anyone who's going to put you down for that is denying their own divinity. Like that is not, you will know. Like if you're listening to this, I know you have so much discernment with this. Like there's a very clear difference when somebody is sharing their gifts and embodying confidence from a place of the soul versus doing it out of like ego and lacking because they think they're better than other people. It's really fucking clear when that's the case. And I know that's not going to be the case with you. Like, don't worry about that. So what I'm just saying is like anybody or any like fear that somebody would be like, who do you think you are? They're the ones who are pedestalizing people and putting them below. And it's because they have not come to terms with their own divinity. And that's the ironic thing is they are also fucking divine and have gifts and have genius. They just haven't realized it yet. And that's fine. And that's okay. So like,
whoa, yeah.
You know, like even the people who you think, you know, are like judging you, you're also judging them, you know? And that's why the whole thing breaks down. And it's like, it's also fine if people don't get it and are giving you shit and are whatever, because they're also in their own genius and they just haven't realized it yet. And that's also fine because everybody's on their own path.
Another thing is coming through. Some people aren't here to understand your personal genius. So when you're out there marketing yourself or sharing your gifts or just giving that energy to the world, it's going to be received by the people that are meant to receive it. And know that your journey involves also being misunderstood and not received by some people. And I know we've talked about this in some episode. I can't even remember which one. But especially when it comes to tapping into your genius and your gifts and really claiming yourself as an authority in whatever it is you want to claim yourself as an authority in, or also just like claiming the gifts that you have and walking into social situations and really owning who you are without overthinking it. Just know that you shining your light is going to trigger some people and activate some people. Because think about what we were saying about us watching Taylor Swift. When you are tapped in and like conscious and knowing of your own power, you're going to be activated by someone being in their gifts and showing the beauty of what they hold and their unique powers that they hold. But like Bella, you're sharing, it's perfectly aligned with this. You're going to trigger people if they're not in a state of remembering their wholeness and their divinity.
Totally.
And that's not always a bad thing. Sometimes our role in life is actually to be the person that is triggering someone. And I can even look at all the times I've been triggered in my life and I'm like, damn, that was such a freaking gift. Like, so beautiful for me to have that moment of just like self-reflection. If you're wanting to use it that way, you don't have to. You can just keep getting triggered by the same thing over and over again and throughout your entire life. But if you want to stop being triggered and use it as something to point you inwards to the part of yourself that's wanting more freedom, then it's a gift. So I just wanted to add that here. There's an initiation that takes place when you are owning your gifts, and that is the initiation of being understood by some and misunderstood by some. And it's just a part of the path, and you got to kind of embrace it.
Totally.
Embrace it and understand that you're going to go even deeper in your journey of embodiment and owning your gifts when you accept being misunderstood by the people that are not actually meant to understand those gifts.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm thinking that there could have been a totally different outcome to when I asked that person the question about like the universe and whatever. I could have interpreted that if they didn't get it, I could have been like, wow, I must be silly in my beliefs, and like what I'm doing and saying must be like, you know, stupid or whatever. And that's what you're saying of like, even when you're sharing your gifts and in your genius, not everyone is going to get it. And that is like the other level of power, is being able to share it and not let it, not letting how the other person reacts mean something about you. And I'm thinking about how much when we have friends over, a lot of them are, I mean, almost every one of our friends here, other than like their significant others, are like engineers or very like engineering, something related, like mechanical focused people. And sometimes I'll invite people to do tarot pulls, and I'll like bring them in on just whatever like fun, little spiritual thing that I like to do, which mainly it'll be like a tarot pull. And I'll explain, like, look these people in the eye and explain how tarot works. And I explain like everything you see in your reality is a reflection of what is within. So when you put your conscious attention on the cards, they're going to mirror to you through the field what is within you. So when you ask a question and you put your intention on the cards, it will speak to you what is meant for you. I fucking say that dead ass because that's fully what I believe. I know that that is true, at least for me and how I function. And sometimes they snicker and laugh and they think it's whatever. I don't fucking care. I don't, because this is my work and this is who I am and this is my life. And I'm so like in it and love it and don't care if like somebody doesn't get it, that it allows it to be fun. So even if this engineer is like, oh, whatever, fucking tarot, it's like, it doesn't bother me. And that's that practice of like, share your gifts, even if people aren't going to get it or they think it's silly. Like, it has nothing to do with you, And they're allowed to not get it. Like, they're allowed to be like, that's, silly, or like, you're making this up, or like whatever the fuck they might think. That's also in their own right. And it's just another example of like, yeah, people aren't going to get it. And that's part of the process. Cause then that gives you the gift of believing in yourself so much that even when somebody is not getting it, it doesn't budge your commitment and your perception of your own genius.
Yes. Yeah. This is like really powerful to understand, because even if you're someone who's putting yourself out there, for you guys listening, I know a lot of the Omis out there are entrepreneurs or have a vision of stepping into that journey. When you are putting yourself out there online, you are opening yourself up to criticism, and it's just a part of the journey. And if you are posting your stuff online and you get negative comments, this is kind of similar to what you're sharing, just more on a social media setting type of situation. And this is an opportunity. Like, when you get a negative comment or someone not believing in what it is that you are talking about, it's just an opportunity to feel into like acceptance, and also the beauty that we all have different perspectives and different zones of genius. But also, like, how cool is it that we all live in this world where we are seeing and picking up data that is so different, that's giving us unique experiences of this matrix, of this reality. Like, this is what consciousness wanted. It wanted to experience itself in multiple different forms. And we're not all here to believe the same thing or to have the same gifts, because that's fucking boring. And sometimes you're going to find yourself in experiences where people are mirroring to you the part of you that just wants deeper self-acceptance of who the fuck you truly are. And something that was coming up as you were talking, I was thinking about the question I asked you before about like a practical takeaway of what someone can do. And I thought of this powerful little tool. If you are someone that gets like social anxiety, or before they walk into a social setting, you like dread it because you're thinking about how you're going to be perceived, or what kind of conversations are you going to have. And there's just like a lot of overthinking, because deep down what's happening is you may be putting people on a pedestal, even if it's people you don't even know. You tend to maybe walk into a room and just put them on a pedestal before even getting to know them. See if you can tap into an energetic practice before going into a social situation where you literally feel into the presence of the people that are in that social situation. Maybe you don't know who's going to be there, maybe you do, but just imagine those figures and see them on the pedestal. And that's just like the stage that's in the Taylor Swift movie, how it goes up and down. Just like bring it down and like visualize it coming down, and start to really pick one person. If you know the people that you're going to see, really pick one person and like look at them and explore the shadows and the gifts and the light and the darkness that they hold, and really just start to see the whole human that they are. And what this is doing is it's really taking them off the pedestal, but also it's allowing you to see them as a soul.
Yeah.
And then just see yourself as the same soul too. And this can help you walk into a social situation and be more loving towards people, see the light that they hold while also honoring their own shadows, and then knowing on a deep freaking soul level that you are also one and the same as that person. And I find that this will help because this is like the energetic cord cutting of like being so attached to like how we're being perceived and what's this person going to think of me, because you recognize that we're all just souls with shadows and lights and gifts and whatever, and it's just a whole human, and you're a whole human, and everyone's just little baby humans bopping around on this teeny bopping world.
Yeah,
and
totally.
just
Wow, it really is. You kind of see how I feel like there's like the fundamentals of like how we perceive each other, and at the end of the day, like it really all comes back to a few core principles, if not one, which is all is one. And it's like that's like the OG place that almost like fixes so many of the freaking ailments that we suffer from, is that OG freaking remembrance. Because from there, like this whole conversation is like, if you explore that and feel that and really get into the nitty gritty of what that means, then there's a release of judgment, and there's the pedestal dissolves. And I'm just sitting here like really thinking about how powerful it is to know and feel the truth of oneness and who we all really are, because from there you just enjoy humans, and like it removes so much unnecessary pain from the way we perceive the world.
Yeah, that part's important too. Like you really get to experience life in a different way when you connect with people authentically. Because what you were sharing before too, without that oneness, like you're not able to have a deep connection with someone if you're seeing them as separate from you, or better or lower or whatever.
Yeah.
Like the authentic connection really, really comes through when you're just like raw and real. And that's also when you open up to being vulnerable with people, is when you feel safe enough to express the shadows of yourself, because you know the other person sees you as a powerful soul that doesn't change just because they're dealing with shame or guilt or going through a dark night, and it just makes them a fucking human.
Yeah. It's like, I'm feeling so warm and fuzzy right now. It's like we're all just brothers and sisters of...
Yes.
Like, I'm just...
Greg Braden says that nonstop.
Yes.
He calls everyone his brother.
I love that.
And sister.
It's so beautiful. I'm actually thinking about how I was just visualizing I'm going to go play pickleball tonight. And I was like, I'm going to be looking at everyone on the court and just be like, you guys are all my brothers and sisters. Yeah. We're all just part of the same fucking weird ass adventure. It's like a really heartwarming feeling. And to like, look at a stranger and be like, you're my brother. Like, we're fucking in it. And I know that there's days where that's hard to do, and the separation feels really strong. And there's times when it's divine to, you know, not feel it and to be focused on other things. Like, you know, that's all fine. But yeah, it's really like at the end of the day, feeling that just really like warms my heart. And I'm visualizing back to like that story I was telling, and truly when I look at whether it's like the person I was talking about in that story or any other like person that most people would pedestalize or feel like really nervous about around, is I'm like, these people are just another me. And then it's like, why the fuck? You don't need to be nervous around another you. Like, it's you. Like, silly little you. It's fine, you know?
And if it's hard to picture this, guys, like, just zoom out.
Oh my God.
And keep zooming out. Like, truly zoom the fuck out and see how tiny we are. And this really does remove so much of the pressure and the stress that we put on ourselves. Like, zoom the fuck out and just see how connected we all are. And the oneness can be felt when you see things from that higher perspective. And just let me invite this in here while we're here. There's always a higher perspective, not just the way we see our collective and our world, but with every situation. So just always know that you can invite in a higher perspective, and it will give you a soul perspective, and it will liberate you. I just wanted to add that in here.
I love it. Beautiful.
That's like a core of the teachings that I lean into with liberating people from inner suffering. I'm like, what is the higher perspective?
Yes.
What's the soul perspective?
I love that.
So that's more of like a physical way of applying that, is to look at our physical and zoom out. But yeah, I feel like I touched on everything I wanted to share with that. Are you feeling complete with this conversation? That was powerful.
It was really beautiful. I feel like so warm and fuzzy from this. It's nice. I wasn't expecting
I love
that.
it.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was incredible. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for listening with this type of conversation. I mean, this is like the big stuff, you know. In the week before this conversation, we last episode would have been on the Greg Braden episode, all about the battle for our humanity, and this is kind of perfect because it is in the exploration of all these topics, and when we're really in the weeds with life, that we need to remember that higher perspective and to take kind of a little gut check on how we are perceiving others and ourselves and how we're relating to everyone around us, because it's kind of what it's all about at the end of the day, is remembering our sorry it's just going like what? I'm just laughing at my accent that just randomly came out.
I love it. Embrace it.
Kind of what it's all about at the end of the day, y'all. Yeah, that's it. We've said everything. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you for being here. We love you so freaking much. Don't forget to check out our community membership. That is such a good time, such a great place to walk hand in hand with other awakened souls just like you, where people are sharing their gifts and their shadows all in the same. And it's really beautiful to see all of these shares that are going on all the time in the Slack channel, whether people are opening up about things that they're calling in, sharing resources that really have helped them, asking for guidance on things. And then of course we have monthly new moon circles every month, beginning of the month through the end of the year. We'll keep doing those into the 2025, and monthly expert workshops. So our membership is really where it's at if you want to solidify and kind of take this journey further. So check it out. We'll link it in the description.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Peace and love. Peace.
Cue our new bop. All right. Bye, guys.